I'm so thrilled that you're here, and you will be too. Wait till you hear what Carlos has to say. Carlos Barrios is our featured Knowledge Friday speaker tonight, and the church welcomes him and all of you. Please silence your cell phones before we begin. We're going to begin the evening with a very short film about a guitar that Carlos made that he will then later show you. We'll have a little conversation and a Q&A. Our Knowledge Fridays are meant to be something that's open and free-flowing and conversational. So although we'll begin talking, if you have an urgent or interesting or just burning question, please don't hesitate to ask, because we like everyone to feel like a participant. And then at the end, we have a guitarist who's going to give us a little sample of the guitar that Carlos has brought, which I'm like already madly in love with without having heard it. I just want to say before we start, so some of you have heard me or someone else, I'm sure, say this about the church and the wood in the church. When Eric and I first saw the church, we thought, wow, this wood is so fantastic. The rafters, the age of the wood, the length of the beams. Over the course of time, we found out that the wood in this church is 300 years old. Now, Carlos is going to laugh at that, but I'll tell you why later. And we thought, wow, it's so old. And subsequently, a friend of ours brought over a musician to see the church well before it was finished. And this guy has a Guarneri violin. And if you know violins, there's Stradivari and there's Guarneri. There's all these fancy old violins. And the thing that makes them so extraordinary is that when wood, in this case pine, but also in spruce, and other woods that are used for guitars and violins, is used, as the wood ages, the sap crystallizes. It gets more and more and more like a kind of a little tuning mechanism in it. It's an amplifier. It really does crystallize, and it turns the wood into something that's at once transformed and still alive. So it keeps producing this amazing ability, and the older it gets, the more amazing it is. So when I found out about Carlos being a guitar maker, I was very excited to hear about it, because Eric brought GE over to see his guitars, and GE Smith, who curated the guitar show up here, and he was really flipped out by the guitar. And so we're going to be talking about guitars and wood, and also sound, and also the things to look for and ways to learn to hear about when you're listening to an instrument, what makes it so beautiful. And the church, I'm just going to say, is proud to be hosting this particular talk, because it's so appropriate to its history and to the things that we're experiencing here. And for anyone who's heard any kind of a musical performance in the church, you know what I mean, because the sound is just naturally amplified by the wood. So it's going to be double wood in here. It's going to be great. So without further ado, we're presenting a film by John Jinks, who is actually going to be here tonight and has had a medical emergency in his family and can't be here, for which we're very sorry. He's the director of the film, and it'll tell you about one of the guitars that Carlos has made. That was a wonderful film, actually. It was really informative, and it went deeper than other films that I've seen about guitar making. And the other word, of course, that you've probably read in our press releases and information is luthier. So luthier, which obviously comes from the word lute, refers to someone who makes guitars or lutes, and a luthier is a fine craftsman for guitars. Typically, that's where it's most often used in this culture. And I wanted to say too, so Carlos, you grew up with your dad being a woodworker, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about him?
He was a furniture maker, and that's where I got my passion for the material, actually.
And did you just sit and watch him work? Did he let you play in his workshop carefully,
yes.
or?
Yes. When I was very young, he had a shop at home. So that's where my passion for the material actually was what really called my attention.
And how did music fit into it? Because furniture and music are two different things.
Well, actually, music just came about when I moved to the Hamptons.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Because we're so musical.
exactly. It was one of those things. I started going out with a cousin of mine who's a piano player, and I was going to gigs with him, and I noticed the bass player was all by himself in the corner. So I wanted, I'd say I want to be that guy.
And did you learn to play bass at that time?
I started learning how to play bass at that time.
So you were like a young adult.
Yeah.
You weren't, or young.
Yeah, I was like
Old teenager.
It was in 1990.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was young.
Yeah.
So that's when I just started listening to most of the basses, and see what they were doing, and till I came across with a couple of friends. They introduced me to Jaco Pastorius.
Oh my God.
And that sound was like, the sound was
Yeah, that would help.
incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
So I asked myself, I want to get a bass like that sounds like it. And a year went by, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't afford it either. I decided to make one. That's when everything starts.
And when you decided to make yourself a bass guitar, which is, not something that many people would undertake under any circumstance, how did you proceed? Did you, because of your exposure to your dad and his sensitivity to wood, did you seek out particular wood? Did you read up? Did you talk? There were no YouTube videos at that time probably, so.
I had a little knowledge of the tools back then, and I just choose the woods just for the beauty of them. Mm-hmm. In this case, I used maple and mahogany. And at that time, I found this big piece of mahogany that was like perfect for the bass. So I said, this is the bass. And
you said that wood has come to you. We were chatting before,
yeah.
And Carlos said, well, sometimes wood just comes to me. It just seeks me out. What did you mean by that? Tell us a little more.
It's just, it's funny the way it happens all the time that I walk into a deli and somebody just shout my name and say, follow me. And I'm like, what do you mean? I got something for you. And it's just.
And it's always wood?
Yeah, it's always wood. Yeah.
Damn.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing that how it happens so many times. It's not just once.
Well, this brings me to what I said that I was going to explain now, which was that there's two things. First of all, when we were looking at the church, we were like, all this wood is so beautiful, I don't want to cover up 1 inch of it. I want to keep everything the way it is. We both felt the same way. And then when the guy brought the violin and played it, and the sound boomed out into the wood, and the wood boomed it back. It was clearly the building and his instrument were having a conversation.
What happened through the years, the wood petrifies, and it becomes less mass. And that means more vibration. Mm-hmm. The less mass, like when you make a top of the guitar, if you make it thinner and thinner and thinner, you get a lot more volume out of it. But when you do that, you put in jeopardy the top. Yes. Because it's too thin. And wood expands and contracts all the time. And that's the reason you don't make a thin top.
So, and did you kind of get it right when you built your first guitar? Do you still play that one?
I really can't explain it because it's mostly by feel. When you do things, you really don't know how the guitar is going to respond until you put strings on it.
Yeah.
And by tapping the instrument, I kind of know, but it's just, it's the time you put into it and to try to do it perfect, which will never be perfect, but you get very close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. And it's all by feel, like I said. I don't do anything with numbers or anything like that. It's just by feeling.
That just knocks me out. I have a guitar at home because I'm a terrible but eager guitar enthusiast that's made by this guy named Taki, and he was inspired by a French guitarist named Boucher, and he studied all his diagrams, and then he made these homage to Boucher guitars, and they're great. They're heralded. I'm lucky that I have one, but the guy really worked his ass off, obviously, trying to understand, like, where does this thing come from, and how can I possibly make a guitar that's worthy of that? But you seem to have, I think maybe you're descended from a tree, I'm not sure, but you seem to have this extraordinary sensitivity to it, which, is just so wonderful.
Yes, it is, in a way it's a gift, because I know a lot of people who tried before to make an instrument, and they're unbelievable carpenters, but they cannot achieve what I've been doing. It's just different.
Yeah.
So different.
What was your feeling when GE came over to meet your guitar?
Well, that was pretty impressive to see him at my door. It's knowing G. Smith is a world-renowned guitar player. Just having it in my shop was such a gift, to have him playing one of my guitars. It was really unbelievable.
And did you, in the back of your mind, were you thinking, I'm going to blow his mind? Or did you just think, I hope he likes it?
No, you know what he was calling out of the guitar, what he was pulling out of the guitar, which he played for about an hour. And
which is a really long time for a visit, by the way. This means like he was like in love, obviously, but go on.
Yeah, he was just throwing everything to the guitar, and the guitar was just giving him everything. And he was like, I cannot believe how much this guitar is giving me, by having overtones and harmonics and overtones.
Can you tell everybody what harmonics and overtones are? I know what you're saying. Just a little description.
You got me in that. It's like harmonics is like how do I put it? You got me on that one.
We should have it.
Really
So harmonics is like on the neck of the guitar has certain spaces, and at the 12th fret, those are the little bars that go down the neck. And when you get to the 5th and the 7th and the 12th, the guitar is arranged harmonically. I mean, each part of it, in a sense, is designed to result in music. And if you just touch a string properly, you can play it. You can like just make it sort of go ding. But when you do a harmonic and you play it like that, and we'll have someone show you how this works later, you actually get an octave above the sound that the string is supposed to make at that fret. And it's just a way of like touching the string lightly, and you'll get this kind of surprise resonance resulting from it. And then overtones are the things that in a beautiful instrument you'll hear like a blending of sound where sounds meet within the body of the guitar, where the wood is like amplifying and pulling it out. I'm not saying this incorrectly, I don't think.
Right, yes,
so,
yes.
And overtones can be way too much, but when you get a great balance of overtones, then you get this, it's like a small orchestra living inside one instrument, and it's a pretty amazing and unique quality that a stringed instrument gives you. So, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's correct. That's all what she said.
In a nutshell. So I also read that so before you started making guitars, you walked into Hampton's Art and Music, I think was the name of the store.
Yes,
And
Hampton Music and Art.
Hampton's Music
My
and
friend is in the back over there.
Oh, who is he?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for coming. So I read actually that you were in the shop and someone brought in a guitar for repair, and he very kindly said to the person, I'm afraid we can't do anything for this instrument. And you said?
And then I wait for the person to leave, and they left the guitar with him. So I approached Mark, which he's in the back over there. Hi, Mark. And I said, I can fix it. And he looked at me, are you a luthier? I said, I don't know what is that, but I.
That's the best
He was,
line.
I'm a carpenter, I said. So he said, a luthier it's like a carpenter, but they repair instruments, he goes. But if you can fix it, I'll give it to you, he said. So I took it, and like 3 weeks later, I brought it back, and he said to me, you are a luthier. So that's when everything starts, that's when I start making repairs. That was like 1993 when I started.
So that's before you made the bass guitar or after?
That was a little before.
Just
Before, yeah.
Who does that? I can fix
That's a
that
little
guitar.
before,
That's
yeah.
like that's so ballsy, really. But obviously you felt that you knew the wood.
I kind of trust myself with everything I do, and it comes from the gut. You know, if I really can do something, I'll let you know I really can.
Yeah.
But, you know, otherwise I just go for it.
It's
and do it.
amazing. Now, I also heard that you have some wood that's almost 1,500 years old. This gets back to the 300-year brag about this place. Where in the world did you obtain wood that old?
That piece of wood came from, it's a recycled piece of redwood from the redwood forest that somebody bought to make a table. And they didn't do the table anymore, and they say, you want a piece of these? And I said, yeah.
So that was like the guy with
Yeah.
like, I got a present for you.
Yeah,
It's another
exactly.
person
No,
that
I
came
mean,
up with this.
they weren't going to use it anymore. So I said, can I have a piece? And they actually gave me a piece.
And that would be for a back
the
and
top.
neck.
That
For
would
the
be for
top.
tops,
Is
yes.
it a spruce?
It's
Kind of
similar
spruce?
to spruce and similar to cedar. You know, it's very, very similar to those types of wood.
Did you guys understand in the movies, so when you're making a back and the sides and stuff, you want something that's a little tougher, and then
Yes.
when you get to the sound plate, the front of the guitar, you want something that's thinner and a little more touchy, a
It's
little more
softer,
sensitive.
softer type of material.
Yes, and spruce and cedar are both woods that are used for that. And cedar top guitars have a sort of a warmer, richer, and then spruce tends to be a little brighter, I would say.
Yes.
Kind of generally.
Yes.
And do you work with cedar tops sometimes?
Yes, I have made cedar tops before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they give you a lot of bass on the instrument.
Yeah.
You know, so therefore you want to put a maple body or rosewood body for that matter to make that mixture of woods to give you a certain type of tone.
I'm also excited to hear that you have some Guatemalan rosewood.
Guatemalan rosewood, yeah.
Do you all know also there's a whole thing with guitars and guitar making. Brazilian rosewood is sort of the holy grail of what to use on the back of a guitar. It just tends to be a very beautiful, resonant, rich, really rich wood.
Yes.
And I didn't know about Guatemalan rosewood, but you think that it's even better.
It's not.
And not because you're from Guatemala.
Some of the, like Brazilian rosewood was the holy grail for making instruments. And you can see a lot of Brazilian rosewood on GE's instruments.
Yeah.
Because they're older. But that wood, you cannot harvest it anymore, or there is no more of that wood.
It's now protected.
It's protected,
And
yeah.
people use Indian rosewood typically, which is not endangered, but some woods are literally endangered, which is an interesting facet, but people really, really want Brazilian rosewood.
Yes.
And I don't, is there...
It all depends from where they harvest the material, you know, because that has to do a lot with the tone also.
Well, I'm
Like
sure
the
that there's...
altitudes and
Yeah.
moisture and dryness, all that change the tree.
Yeah.
So I'm so lucky that I was able to find 3 generations of door makers in Guatemala. They own the land for 3 generations, and they harvested woods 100, 200 years ago. And some of those woods make it till this day in their warehouses. And that's where I found the Guatemalan rosewood.
Oh my God! And then do your friends
And
send it to you?
I brought it with me. I just brought it with me.
That's just really, really remarkable. And I'd love to hear more. I was absolutely fascinated by the bracing, the conversation about the bracing in the film. Were you too? I mean, I don't know if that's kind of a guitar weenie kind of thing, which I am, but the whole idea of allowing the back to vibrate more in the top. 3% obviously is huge. And then the warmth, I did not know about as the guitar is played and it warms up. I know about guitars getting played in. People talk about that a lot. Would you tell us about what played in is?
Well, like I was saying on the documentary, usually the guitar vibration is only 5% on the instrument. Once the guitar gets warmer, you get maybe 6-7%. This guitar can give you up to 8% from the get-go. And when it warms up, when the guitar gets warm, give you up to 10-15% of vibration properties, which allow the guitar to give you a lot more volume, and the tone is really, really unique.
Also, where the placement of the sound hole is. Did you all get a look at this guitar? Because it's very, very unusual. You know, when a little kid draws a guitar, you're going to go like that, like a peanut, and then you're going to make a circle and then the strings and whatnot. But the sound hole below or just above the bridge and, underneath the strings seems so important and necessary and fundamental. But here you can see that it's an entirely different treatment. And you were saying that was to get more resonance.
Yes, it's to get like 100% of vibration from the top near the bridge. This is the dead part of the top right here. You get a little bit of vibration out of there, but it's mostly dead on this area. So putting a sound hole here it makes a lot of sense. This is one of 3 designs of these guitars. This is the middle one. The first of these guitars have only one sound hole on the side, like this one.
And that's so unusual.
And yeah, it's very unusual. The second design is this one, which have this and the port. And the third design only have one hole right here, which is an oval. It's a little bigger than this. But it's all about the vibration through at the top. So that's why the sound hole is here.
And I can tell you from personal experience, because oddly enough, I happen to have a guitar that was made in Mexico by a guy who's pretty wonderful, and there's a sound hole on the top like that. So when you're holding the guitar, you feel like the sound is coming to you. And it's very different from what you want, of course, is it to project out. But as an intimate experience of sound when you're playing, it seems like a gift.
Yes.
To have that.
This would be a really good guitar for a singing songwriter.
Yeah.
Because people who sing try to tune to the instrument. So that would be very, very good for somebody who sings.
Yeah.
It's very versatile. This guitar, you can play jazz, you can play classical or blues.
Yeah.
On it. It's very versatile.
Yeah.
The sound of it, yeah.
I want to hear some Jobim on it myself. I would love to ask if Eric, questions? Honey, wait for a mic for 1 sec.
Sorry.
You go.
Speaking about those holes, are you putting them in after you put the guitar together to see exactly what the vibration
No.
is? You determine, I'm going to
Yes.
do guitar number 2, I'm going to do guitar number 3 kind of thing?
It's determined by the bracing. And when you're making the bracing, you're going to place the sound hole also, because you have to put a reinforcement inside the top before you open that hole on there. Because otherwise the top gets very, very fragile. So before you have to do it no matter what. From when you're building the top, you have to make that hole in place. So you don't know it, like I said before, until you put strings on the instrument. But with the experience that I have through the years, I've been able to learn how to know that by tapping the instrument, by tapping the woods, you know.
Just the way you did in the movie, for instance.
Yes,
Like you
yes.
can. So before you go to put a guitar together, you find different woods that you think.
No,
are,
even when it's together, I start tapping in places where I need to remove material. You know, so that's how I tune up the top.
Yeah.
You know, because this top, the bass side is thinner than the treble side.
You mean you plane
It's-
it?
Yeah, it's
So that
thinner.
it's-
It's
Oh my
thinner.
God.
That is thinner than the left than the treble side.
And that's
That's to enhance bass.
Do people always do that with guitars?
Some
or is
people
that
does, but
that's something
not,
that you
not
do.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
because I've
everybody.
never heard of that being.
A lot of people, this bracing system is very different from a conventional instrument.
That
and-
I did notice.
And
It's-
that's part of the system, having the top being the bass thinner than the treble. And even the neck is made out of rosewood also, which it's not a mahogany neck. It's a rosewood body, rosewood neck. And this wood came from the same piece. It's not a different piece of wood. This whole instrument came from one piece of wood. And I got it down to 3 species of wood only: spruce, ebony, and rosewood. And even the scrap that I get from rosewood, I put it inside and use it all. It's the same piece of wood, same age, same grain. You know, it's nothing changed on this piece of wood here, which is very important for the system to work.
How did you decide how big to make the body of the guitar and how long to make this, what they call the scale length, the neck?
What do you mean, like?
I mean, it's not, obviously it's not a D, it's not like a big wide body guitar.
Yeah.
It has like a certain,
Well, this started as a classical instrument, but when I started researching the bracing of it, and I started seeing more and more custom builders using it, that's when I decided to, instead of having a fan bracing on the top, I decided to do this bracing.
and is that exactly what Sasha bracing
No.
is?
No.
Because
This is-
I'm going to guess you made this one up.
No, I actually changed stuff on it.
Yeah.
Because that's how we are.
Yeah.
You know, we change things because you want to put your signature on it. You know, and then there are little things that I change on it, and I move things on it too, so to make it mine.
Have your guitars been imitated by other luthiers?
Other luthiers, no, honestly, no, because I've been underground for the last 30 years, for sure. You know, not a lot of people knows what I'm doing. A lot of people in the room, yes,
Yeah.
they know my work, but yeah, I've been pretty much, you know, confined to my own.
Yeah, it's just remarkable. Please, other questions? Barbara?
Thank you, April, for defining overtones and harmonics. I appreciate
Yes.
that, and I love the passion for your own instrument. I wish you were here playing it. Carlos, I don't understand one thing. Wrap my head around this. When you were a young man saying, I'm going to build a guitar, you were not yet a musician, you hadn't yet played the guitar, is that true?
No,
You had
actually, I started playing the bass.
Okay, it was the bass.
Because I'm a bass player, I'm not a guitar player.
Okay, but what's left here that I don't understand is how did you get from saying, I'm going to build a guitar, like little kids, they take apart radios. What did you do? Did you take a guitar apart? Did you start analyzing?
Well, at that point, I had a bass, and I started just having ideas of what kind of shape I wanted to make my own. And,
He is a woodworker.
Oh, I know that. That's
So-
very
And
clear,
I-
but the complexity of it is amazing inside.
and
mean,
I
played
just
a
went
guitar,
for
I
it, you
never
know?
knew that.
It's one of those things that I usually do. When I decide to do something, I just go for it and do it, you know, and try to just to go for it, which is how I done pretty much everything. I do.
But you stayed underground, you say.
No, I have reference for sure from other instruments. And then I just put my ideas in my hands.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please. Oh, a mic is coming to you.
What are your opinions about the process of torrefaction? Is that what it's called, where the wood is aged? A number of guitar manufacturers talk about their aged wood, and not everyone can have 1,500-year-old wood in
Yes.
their guitars.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, do you age your wood in any way other than just leaving it in your workshop?
Yes, that's the only way you can age material. Just air. Just done by air. And like I said, I have this piece of wood, I had it with me. I built this in 2018. I finished it. But I had this wood for maybe 30 years before that. It was sitting, just waiting for me to work on it. I have material like that since I start collecting material even before I knew I was going to make instruments, because I wanted to make furniture. That's why I'm able to do this from one piece, because I collected very big pieces of wood. So, and that's where the idea came about, to make instruments. And pretty much the stuff I have is 300, 400 years old piece of material, which is, I'm very fortunate to have all that. Because that's what it's all about. It's about the age of the material when you go to build an instrument. Because from the get-go, once the instrument is finished, it takes about 6 months for all the fumes and glues and everything to come out of the instrument. Everything evaporates, and once that happened, the instrument just starts getting better and better. The more you play it, the better the instrument gets, because it gets petrified. That's what we were talking about.
It gets played in, but I've even seen, I'm going to reveal how bad a weenie I am about all this stuff, but they even sell things, like if you get a new guitar, you want to play it in as fast as possible, but you can't play it 24 hours a day. So there's even devices that you can buy that will gently vibrate your guitar as if it were being played and help it age faster. The only thing on earth that probably wants to age faster, but yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it's, again,
there is such
it's
thing.
It's a goal. How many people in this audience play guitar?
There's a lot of people here.
Hey, yay! That's so great. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm John. So Carlos, great to see you. I've had the pleasure of him working on some of my guitars that he didn't build, unfortunately. And his process of repair is also, I think, really extremely amazing. But one process you do is, and not to give out a secret, but you let the guitar rest. I'll go that far. So with the whole discussion of woods, which I find really interesting, I've always found it interesting, and I've seen your wood collections and what's going on there. And with my own experience with guitars, where, yes, playing it, warming it up, doing all that stuff, I'm familiar with that. Also, I'm familiar with the cyclical nature of humidity throughout the year, where the guitars kind of belly up with moisture, and then they kind of dry up and shrivel up without moisture in the different seasons. What does that bring to the guitar? Like, I know we have to maintain a certain, like 45 to 55 humidity and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
with your guitars, and especially the ones you make, what kind of experience do you have with, I don't know exactly what my question is, but like, in a sense, like, how do you take care of it? What happens to the wood when it's aging and it's going through this process? I'm just really interested in it. It's so amazing what happens there.
I keep the humidifier 55, 45, just like you said, year round. You know, and I keep the guitar. This guitar is always hanging for anybody who comes to my house to play it. That's the only thing I do to this guitar. And once in a while, I get a moist cloth and clean it, just to get the dust out of it and put a little moisture in it. But you really don't have to put a lot of moisture, because that would allow the guitar to expand and contract more. Because as you do introduce moisture, it will expand. You know, so you want to keep it as minimum possible. Of course, you want to have a little moisture, but if you have a controlled room, you don't have to do that.
That would be ideal to keep it would be better for us and better for our guitars and everything to like keep the house at, you know, about 50% moisture. But yeah, that would be a little tricky. Go ahead. Will? Oh, I'm sorry. Here, wait a second. Okay, thanks.
Carlos great at modifying things, because I'm always having something modified. But my question is, do you have a wait for one of your, to get one of your guitars? Is there a waiting list?
At this moment, I don't have any orders, but I'm building a couple of instruments. And I'm
There you go,
actually...
just got one. You just got one. You got one.
Okay.
Good.
You're next, okay?
No, I
I'm
didn't
just
want one.
kidding.
I just was wondering. Yeah, no, I don't really play guitar.
I actually building a couple of instruments right now.
Nice.
They're going to be steel string, not classical as this one. They're going to have the same bracing.
Great.
And I'm
great.
actually doing my first arch top.
Oh, really?
Yes, which is going to be a bass for myself.
So
good for you.
archtop guitars, what is, an archtop
An
really
arch
has
top
an
guitar
arch top.
is made like a violin. The plate is very thick, and then you have to carve the shape on it. And that's my first approach to this type of instruments, to see, you know, why flat top instrument luthiers change to arch top. And I can see why they do that. It's a lot more rewarding, because you are touching a lot more of the wood. You are really creating a form on the piece of wood. Unlike this, you're creating a form, but it doesn't have that arch on it, which is very, very interesting. You know, when you start doing stuff like that, then you start really tuning your craft to the highest level. It's very, very rewarding. It's one of those things that I just start doing. You know, just recently, about 4 months ago, I started a bass, and it's like as soon as I'm done here, I'm be working on it for sure.
So, talk about industrial revolution, communication revolution, digital revolution. There's a whole other revolution been going on under our noses, the revolution in adhesives. And like how experimental do you get with that? How conservative are you with that? Any surprises you found in exploring?
What do you mean, like the advancement? You're talking about the advancement of what I'm using on it, or?
I'm talking about like, are you pretty strict with using traditional adhesives in what you're doing, or do you experiment at all?
Yes, I tried to use high glue before, and it's a double-edged sword, because you have to be a very, very meticulous about making the high glue, and temperature, and how much water you put in it. You have to be an expert on making high glue. And I repaired a couple of instruments at the beginning with high glue, and I regret it so bad, because they just came apart. And I think in 100 years, the white glue is nothing better than that. You know, using epoxies, you want to be able to, with epoxies, you won't be able to take apart the instrument. This guitar, I can take it apart completely if I want to, or I can work on it, you know, by having regular water-based glues. which is very important too when you're making an instrument.
That's a good question. How many people think about adhesives?
Yeah.
Sherry?
I have two questions. Actually, the first one is very straightforward. How long does it take you to make a guitar or a bass?
Well, this one, because we film it and everything, it took a little longer than usually. At this point, I'm only working on instruments like 4 hours a day. It's not a full time yet, but I think I can produce an instrument in a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 8 hours, if I work 8 hours on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question is one I will probably ask GE, who is coming here tomorrow too. Among the guitars here, we have a guitar, and so all of the guitars are accompanied by a very, very simple humidity system inside of the vitrine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a small sponge in a water bath, and they have to be checked twice a day when we get in, when we close the place. And there is one guitar that soaks up water at a much faster rate than all the others. And it is the guitar with all of the extensive mother of pearl inlay that's that way. And so I was curious to ask GE, but I will ask you, I'm curious if your answer is the same. What do you think could make that one guitar be soaking up, be thirsty for water at twice the rate of all the other guitars?
Which one are you talking about?
Is it the really wide-bodied one over
Yeah,
there?
it's the wide body
Yes.
with the very mother of pearl inlaid fretboard that right at the top of the stairs.
Well, the body is part of it. That's a huge guitar, and I actually have one of those at my house right now from G that I'm doing a repair, and that's a big guitar, and to me that's all it is the body.
Just the surface
the
area
the
of the
size
wood.
of the body.
Because I
yes.
don't think it's the largest one, though, in terms of the body. So there's the black, the ebony guitar is a little bit.
This one is the biggest one, though.
Yeah.
This one, that's a big body guitar, and it's very, very wide this way also.
Right.
I mean, the box is very big. It's about 5
Very
inches.
simple solution.
Yeah, that guitar is big.
It's,
Thank you.
it's huge,
Yeah,
actually.
it's huge, yeah.
Should we ask Lee to come up and just play this guitar for a second so we can all hear what it sounds like? Because enough talk, you know.
Yeah.
Then we're going to ask somebody named John to play too. For a second. And we also have someone, John. What's John's last name? John. Yay. Lee mostly plays steel string and electric guitars, I think.
Actually, the interesting thing about this guitar, we were talking about it earlier today, is it is designed pretty much as a classical guitar, but, you know, well, I won't be able to play the guitar. One-handed guitarist. I was saying this guitar is essentially designed as a classical guitar, and it's nylon strings, which you normally associate with either classical guitar or Brazilian music. You talk about Jobim. But this guitar has incredible range, and because of that, you can play anything on it and it sounds great, which is actually quite unusual. The other thing I just want to mention before I play for 1 second is that Joanne, that's my wife's name, April, didn't mention that I'm the architect who renovated this building, and I was first a musician. And when I first walked into the building, the first thing I thought of was this is a musical instrument. And one of the things that then guided the design was similar to what you do when you design the guitar. We try to hold as little as possible against the walls of the shell of the building so that it could actually resonate. And it does. And one of the things I did during construction, I would come in here with my guitar every now and then and just listen to the acoustics. And this building is a musical instrument, so it's wonderful to be able
Well,
to play.
I want to apologize. This is Lee Skolnick, our architect. And
No, that's okay.
I think of him as Lee. Everyone knows Lee and Cher and Madonna, and but
So, you can play folk. Listen to how deep it is. But you can play. The resonance is incredible. So in addition to being resonant, it's bright, and you can play something. You can play a run without the overtones, getting in the way of each other. Oh, you can't hear it? Even when you're playing a half tone, you would expect it to get really muddy because it's the opposite of a clean resonance when you play a half tone. But it doesn't. Each note, each chord is very distinct, and that's because of the tone that you've achieved. Normally, on a nylon string guitar, you don't get that brightness. It's much more suited to. Listen to the bass.
the bass is huge.
Other guitarists?
John,
John, you want to come over?
get over here, please. Thank you so much.
Well, Carlos has worked on my instruments before, and he's amazing, excellent person, luthier, and good friend. Sir could play classical. And jazz. And here, let's do a little trivia, see if we can guess this composer. I'll give you three choices. Oh, sorry, answer at once. Most people think it's ludicrous. Other people think it's Sting, which is true, but it's actually Chopin. Very nice, beautiful instrument. Thank you.
Okay, Alfredo. Don't even say that. You did? What? Zippers. Thank you. That's a harmonic.
That was the harmony. And then, mine has a cutaway. This one does not. You can go even further down, which is kind of crazy, but let's see if I can reach it. Can't. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything to add? Does anyone have one final question or comment? Star? Wait, here comes the mic.
I just wanted to ask you, first of all, thank you so much. You really opened my eyes to the craft and beauty of not only the movie, but your workshop.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the beauty of the wood in your father's workshop had a lot to do with what you're doing. But I wanted to ask you, when you went into the delis and people came out and said, I have something for you, what wood were they bringing you? What wood is indigenous?
They actually gave me a chunk of ebony, which is about 400 years old. And they gave me another chunk of Brazilian rosewood, which is it's a lot of wood. And I got a couple of logs of wenge, African wenge, which you can use to make fingerboards. And yeah, they gave me a lot of wood that day. That was a good score.
So you could say too, for fingerboards, you want a wood that's really super hard, like ebony, like wenge. You want something that's like really, super solid, because obviously that's where a huge amount of wear and tear, especially with steel strings, happens on the neck of the guitar. So, but that was thank you so much, everybody who played.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
And Carlos, thank you so much for being here. I thought this was just amazing and eye-opening and
Thank you.
brilliant.
Thanks, everybody.